The boy was cheating. Sloane Mercer pressed her fingers against the edge of her desk, watching the 8-year-old in the third row hold his test booklet upside down. Marco Navarro, expensive uniform, navy blazer with the St. Benedict's crest embroidered in gold thread, pressed white shirt that probably cost more than her rent, leather shoes polished to a mirror shine, perfect posture, dead eyes, the kind of eyes that belonged on someone much older, someone who'd learn early that the world was watching. He was copying answers from the girl beside him by watching her pencil movements, not reading her paper, couldn't angle his head that way without being obvious, just watching the rhythm of her hand, counting the seconds between marks, matching her pace, not even trying to hide it. His gaze flickered between his own blank page and her careful number 2 marks, his pencil moving in synchronized silence. The other students pretended not to notice. Some glanced his way, then quickly looked down. One boy in the back row started to raise his hand, caught another student's eye, and lowered it slowly. They knew something she didn't, something that made them afraid. Sloane stood, her chair scraped against the tile floor, too loud in the concentrated silence of test taking. 23 heads snapped up. Only Marco kept staring at his upside-down booklet, his pencil frozen mid-air. She walked to his desk. The classroom went silent, that thick, dangerous silence children create when adults are about to make a terrible mistake. Marco's knuckles whitened around his pencil. A muscle jumped in his jaw. 8 years old, and already he'd learned to control his face, to hide everything except the tension in his hands. Sloane reached down and quietly flipped his test booklet right side up. Marco's face drained of color. His breath caught. A small sound, barely audible. For 3 seconds, no one moved. The clock on the wall ticked. Someone's stomach gurgled, a pencil rolled off a desk in the back row and clattered to the floor. Then he shoved his desk forward. It screeched across the floor, metal legs screaming against tile. His chair toppled backward with a crack that made 2 girls gasp and 1 boy flinch. "I don't need your help." His voice broke on the last word, cracking between child and something older, something wounded. 8 years old and humiliated in front of his entire class, in front of people who already knew his secret and had been taught to ignore it. Before Sloane could speak, he ran. The classroom door slammed open. It hit the wall with a bang that echoed. His footsteps pounded down the marble hallway, each impact sharp and desperate. The other students stared at Sloane with something close to pity. One girl whispered to another. A boy shook his head slowly. "Stay in your seats," Sloane said. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "Keep working. You have 20 minutes left." 23 faces turned back to their tests. No one asked questions. No one looked surprised. They'd seen this before, whatever this was. She followed him into the hallway. Empty. Lockers lined both walls, gleaming and silent. St. Benedict's Preparatory Academy at 10:47 on a Thursday morning. Every other student in class, teachers behind closed doors, maintenance staff on break. The building holding its breath, waiting. A sound soft, muffled, coming from the janitor's closet near the east stairwell. Sloane opened the door. Marco sat on the floor between a mop bucket and industrial cleaning supplies, crying into his knees. His shoulders shook with the kind of sobs children try to hide, the ones that hurt coming out. He didn't look up, maybe didn't hear her, maybe didn't care anymore. She sat down beside him. The floor was cold through her skirt, her only professional skirt, the one she had worn to 3 interviews before landing this substitute position. Navy blue, slightly too big, purchased from a thrift store in a neighborhood that smelled like old coffee and resignation. It would be ruined by the time she stood up. Stained with whatever was on this floor. She didn't care. "I'm not going to tell anyone," she said quietly. Marco's head jerked up. Shock. Confusion. His eyes were red and his cheeks were wet, and he looked exactly like she had at his age. Terrified and small and certain the world would destroy her for being stupid, for being broken, for being wrong in a way that couldn't be fixed. You can't read, can you? His jaw trembled. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Words tried to form and died on his tongue. Finally, "My father will kill me if he finds out." Not hyperbole, not a child's exaggeration. Real fear carved into an 8-year-old's face, the kind of fear that came from knowing exactly what disappointment looked like on someone you loved. Sloane kept her voice level, calm, the same voice she'd used when her foster mother found her report card in 3rd grade, when the teacher wrote, "Sloane is not trying," in red pen across the top. "How long have you been hiding it?" "Since kindergarten." Marco wiped his nose with his sleeve, leaving a wet streak across expensive fabric. "I'm good at hiding things. Really good. No one knows." "Who else knows?" "No one. The other teachers. They didn't notice, or they pretended not to." He looked at her with ancient eyes, eyes that had learned too young how money worked, how silence worked. "Why didn't you pretend?" "Because I know what it feels like." Marco blinked. Tears still clung to his eyelashes. "You can't read?" "I couldn't when I was your age. I have dyslexia. Do you know what that means?" He shook his head. "It means my brain sees letters differently than other people's brains do. It made reading very hard." The letters moved around on the page. They wouldn't stay still. Sometimes they'd flip backward or upside down. Sometimes they'd just blur together into nothing. She paused. "Let him absorb it." "I thought I was stupid for a long time, until one teacher figured it out and helped me." Marco stared at her, his mouth opened slightly. "You can read now?" "I have 3 degrees." "3?" "English literature, education, and special education." She smiled slightly, remembered the look on her college advisor's face when she declared her major, when she said she wanted to teach. "I became a teacher specifically to find kids like you before the shame eats you alive." Marco's face crumpled. Fresh tears spilled down his cheeks. I tried so hard. But the letters just, they move. They won't stay still. They jump around and I can't." His voice broke. "I can't make them stop." "I know. My mom died when I was born. It's just me and Papa. He's the smartest, strongest man in the world. Everyone's afraid of him. Everyone respects him. If he finds out I'm stupid, you're not stupid. Everyone will think." "Ms. Mercer." Principal Voss stood in the hallway. 55 years old, gray suit tailored expensively, face pale as paper. Her hands shook, actually shook. "Step away from the boy. Now." Sloane stood slowly. Marco grabbed her hand. His fingers were small and cold and desperate. "His father is on his way," Principal Voss said. Each word shook, each syllable carefully controlled like she was reading from a script she'd memorized. "And you need to leave the building immediately. Use the south exit. Don't go back to your classroom. Just leave. I'm his teacher. I'm not leaving him." "You don't understand who his father is." Principal Voss's voice climbed. "You've been here 3 days. You don't know this city. You don't know this family. You need to leave now." "No." Principal Voss stared at her. "I can't protect you if you stay." "I don't need protection. I need to do my job." "Your job is to—" The school's front entrance doors slammed open. The sound echoed through the building like a gunshot. Footsteps, multiple men, heavy, boots on marble, steady and synchronized. Then a voice that made Principal Voss go pale, made her step backward, made her hands flutter to her throat. "Where is my son?" The voice carried, low, controlled. Dangerous in its quietness, in the way it didn't need to rise to fill the space. Footsteps approached. 5 men rounded the corner. 4 wore dark suits and dead expressions, moving in formation like they'd practiced this, like they'd walked into buildings this way 1,000 times before. The 5th walked ahead of them, Dante Navarro. Sloane had been in the city for 3 weeks. She didn't watch the news, didn't read the crime section, didn't follow local politics or organized crime families, or the names that made people cross the street or lower their voices. She'd come here from Seattle with 2 suitcases and a teaching certificate and enough student loan debt to crush her into the ground. She took the substitute position because it was the only offer she got. She only saw a man, 6'3", black suit, tailored perfectly to broad shoulders, expensive fabric that moved like water, dark hair silvered at the temples, Mediterranean features, strong nose, sharp cheekbones, olive skin, eyes that could cut glass, a face that had never smiled and didn't remember how, hands that rested calmly at his sides but looked like they knew violence intimately. He looked at Marco, then at her. And who made him cry? Principal Voss stepped forward, nearly tripping over her own feet. Mr. Navarro, I apologize profusely. This is Miss Mercer, a substitute teacher. She's new. She didn't understand protocol. I've already asked her to leave. I asked her. Dante's gaze never left Sloane's face. Not you. Sloane's heart hammered. Marco's hand tightened around hers. She could feel his pulse through his palm, rabid fast and terrified. She looked at the boy, at the fear in his eyes that had nothing to do with his father's reputation and everything to do with shame. With the certainty that his secret was about to destroy him. She looked at Dante, met those cutting eyes, lifted her chin. I made him cry. I discovered he can't read, and I didn't pretend not to notice. The hallway went silent. Dante took one step forward. His men shifted, hands moving toward jacket pockets, weight redistributing. Ready. Principal Voss made a small sound, half gasp and half whimper. He can read, Dante said softly. Dangerous soft. The kind of soft that came before violence. He's in 3rd grade. He's in 3rd grade, and he's been cheating on every test since kindergarten, Sloane said. Her voice stayed steady even though her hands wanted to shake. He holds his books upside down. He copies from the student beside him by watching her pencil timing. He's brilliant at hiding it because he learned from someone who's been hiding the same thing for much longer. Something flickered across Dante's face. Something fast, recognition, fear, rage, shame. His jaw tightened. A muscle jumped in his temple. You don't know what you're talking about. I know dyslexia when I see it. Sloane's voice stayed steady, professional. The voice she'd practiced in mirrors, in empty classrooms, in interviews where people looked at her resume and asked why someone with her GPA chose education. I know shame. I know fear. And I know a child who thinks he's stupid when he's actually brilliant, when his brain just works differently than the system expects it to. You've been his teacher for 3 days, and 6 teachers quit before me. Sloane looked at Principal Voss. How much did you pay them to stay quiet? How much does the Navarro family donate to this school every year to make sure no one notices that Marco can't read? Principal Voss's face went gray. Marco pulled his hand free from Sloane's. He looked at his father. Papa, Go wait in the car, Dante said. His voice was ice. Now. But Papa, now. Marco's face crumpled. He ran. His footsteps echoed down the hallway, smaller now, frightened. A door slammed somewhere distant. Silence rushed back in like water filling a hole. Dante turned to Principal Voss. Clear this hallway. Yes, Mr. Navarro, immediately. Principal Voss fled, heels clicking frantically against marble. The 4 men in suits disappeared like smoke, there one moment and gone the next. Within 30 seconds, Sloane stood alone with Dante Navarro in an empty hallway at St. Benedict's Preparatory Academy. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Somewhere far away, a class bell rang. If this story has pulled you in, you're in the right place. Dante looked at her for a long time. She watched something move behind his eyes, rage, fear, shame, calculation. He was deciding how to handle her. Threat or bribe, silence or disappearance, money or violence. His hands stayed at his sides, but his fingers twitched once, twice, like they wanted to curl into fists. Your son can't read, Sloane said, quietly, and neither can you. Dante's hand moved, not toward her, toward the inside pocket of his jacket, then stopped, froze. His breathing changed, faster, shallower. You have no idea what you're saying. You built an empire so no one would know. Sloane's voice was gentle now, understanding. The voice she'd used with students who were about to break, who were standing on the edge of giving up entirely. You hire people to read contracts. You memorize speeches word for word before meetings. You intimidate anyone who gets close to the truth. But your son inherited the same dyslexia that's been controlling your life since you were 10 years old. Dante's breathing changed. Shallow, controlled. The kind of breathing that came before violence or breaking. How do you know that? Because I spent my entire childhood hiding the same thing. Sloane took a step closer. He didn't move. Because I know what it looks like when someone has memorized every survival technique. Because Marco looks at you like you're the smartest man in the world and you can't tell him the truth because you don't even know it yourself. I am protecting him. From what? Learning that his brain works differently? Getting the help he deserves? Her voice cracked. You're teaching him to be ashamed of something that isn't his fault. You're teaching him that being different means being broken. Dante's jaw clenched. You know nothing about my son. I know he holds his books upside down. I know he can recite entire passages from memory, but can't sound out the word cat. I know he's terrified of disappointing you because you're all he has left. Sloane's throat tightened. And I know that if someone doesn't help him now, he'll spend the rest of his life believing he's broken. Just like you do. Silence stretched between them. Dante stared at her. She watched him recalibrate, trying to understand a person who wanted nothing from him except to help his son, a person who couldn't be threatened or bought, a person who looked at him and saw through 30 years of carefully constructed armor. What do you want? His voice was rough. To teach him to read. That's all? Yes. You don't want money? No. Protection? A position? A favor? No. Then what? I want Marco to read a book without shame. Sloane's voice shook. That's all I've ever wanted for any student like him, like me. Dante stared at her. You're lying. I'm not. Everyone wants something. I want Marco to read. She paused. And I think you do too. I think you've wanted it since the day you realized he was just like you. I think it's killing you to watch him hide the same way you've hidden. I think you'd do anything to save him from becoming what you became. Dante's face went blank. Completely blank. That particular kind of nothing that meant everything underneath was screaming. His hands curled into fists, uncurled, curled again. You don't know anything about what I became. Then prove me wrong. Sloane pulled a business card from her pocket, cheap cardstock, printed at the library for 10 cents a sheet. Her name, her number, nothing else. This is my number. If you want your son to read, call me. If you want him to spend his life hiding and afraid, don't. She held out the card. Dante looked at it, at her, at the card again. For 10 seconds, neither moved. The fluorescent lights hummed. Somewhere distant, children laughed during recess. Then he took the card. His fingers brushed hers for half a second. Warm skin, calloused knuckles. He looked at it like it might explode. Sloane turned and walked away. Her legs shook. Her heart hammered. She didn't look back. She walked down the hallway, through the front entrance, into the cold October air. She made it to her car, a 15-year-old Honda with a cracked windshield and 200,000 miles, before her hands started trembling. She sat in the driver's seat, breathed, stared at the steering wheel, tried not to think about what she'd just done, who she'd just confronted, how stupid she'd been. Her phone rang 3 hours later. Unknown number. Tomorrow, Dante said. No greeting, no introduction, just that one word. 5 o'clock, my house. He hung up before she could respond. Sloane stared at her phone. Thought about calling back, thought about not going, thought about Marco's face in that janitor's closet, crying into his knees. She'd go. Dante's house was not a house. It was a compound. Walls 12 feet high, topped with cameras and something that might be razor wire. Gates, iron, ornate, operated by men in dark suits with earpieces. Security cameras everywhere, red lights blinking in the late afternoon sun. Men in dark suits who checked her identification twice, patted her down, made her leave her phone in the car. The driveway was half a mile long, perfectly maintained. No leaves, no cracks, no imperfections. The mansion rose at the end like something from a movie. Stone and glass and old money turned into new power. 3 stories, too many windows to count. Architecture that said wealth so loudly it didn't need to whisper. Marco opened the door before she knocked. Hi, he said quietly. His eyes were still red. He'd been crying recently. Hi, Sloane smiled, ready to learn. Marco looked over his shoulder. Dante stood in the foyer. Black shirt, dark slacks, arms crossed, expression unreadable, the kind of face that gave away nothing because giving away nothing had kept him alive. We'll work in the library, Dante said. He led them through hallways lined with art. Original pieces, probably worth more than Sloane would earn in her lifetime. past rooms filled with expensive furniture that looked like no one had ever sat on it. Through a sitting room, a parlor, something that might be a ballroom. The house felt empty. Cleaned and maintained and utterly empty of anything resembling life. The library smelled like leather and old paper and money. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, thousands of books. Spines perfectly aligned, not a speck of dust. None of them opened, none of them read. Just there, just looking impressive, just filling space. Marco sat at a large oak table, the kind of table that belonged in a law firm or a boardroom. Heavy, expensive, impersonal. Sloane sat beside him. Dante stood near the door. "Your father can stay if you want," Sloane said, "or he can leave. Your choice." Marco looked at Dante. Something passed between them. A question, an answer, a plea. "Stay." Dante nodded once. He pulled out a chair. Too small for him, clearly Marco's usual seat, child-sized. He sat, his knees pressed against the table edge. His large frame folded into this small space, and for the first time since she'd met him, he looked uncomfortable, vulnerable, human. Sloane unpacked her bag. Books, colored overlays, transparent sheets in different colors, letter tiles, wooden, smooth alphabet carved into each one, pencils, a notebook. Everything she'd bought with her own money because the school's budget didn't cover special materials. "First lesson," she said. "There's nothing wrong with your brain. It just works differently. That's not bad. It's not good. It just is. Some brains see colors differently. Some brains process sounds differently. Your brain processes letters differently. That's all." Marco stared at her. His hands rested on the table, fingers twisting together. "My teacher said I wasn't trying hard enough." "Your teachers were wrong." Sloane laid out the letter tiles. "You were trying harder than anyone else in that classroom. You just needed different tools. That's what we're going to learn. Different tools for your different brain." She placed 3 tiles in front of him. "CAT, do you know these letters?" Marco nodded. "Say them." "CAT, good. Now watch." She pushed the tiles together slowly. "When these letters are friends, they make a sound. Together. Ku-a-tu. Cat." Marco frowned, looked at the tiles, looked at her. His lips moved silently, testing the sounds. Ku-a-tu. Again, faster. Ku-a-tu. Faster. Cat. His eyes widened. "Cat. You just read your first word." Marco's hands flew to his mouth. His eyes filled with tears. He looked at Dante. "Papa, I read cat. I read a word. A whole word." Dante's throat moved. A muscle jumped in his jaw. His hands gripped the edge of the table. He nodded. "Let's try another," Sloane said. She laid out new tiles, DOG. They worked for 45 minutes. Simple words, 3 letters. CATDOGBAT. RATPIGMANCAR. Marco stumbled, guessed, got frustrated, threw a pencil once, pushed tiles off the table twice. "I can't do this," Marco said, voice breaking. "The letters keep moving." "They're not moving," Sloane said gently. "Your brain is processing them differently. Use the overlay." Marco placed the blue sheet over the letters. His breathing changed. Oh, better? They're still. They're finally still. "Try again." Marco tried, stumbled, tried again. Bat. Perfect. "I read bat, Papa. I read bat." Dante's throat worked. He nodded. They continued, word after word, sound after sound. Sloane showed Marco how to trace the letters with his finger, giving his brain a tactile anchor. Showed him how to say the sounds out loud, engaging his auditory processing. Showed him how to visualize the word, building multiple neural pathways to the same destination. "Your brain needs 3 roads to the same place," she explained. "See it, hear it, touch it. Then it sticks." Marco absorbed every technique, like he'd been starving for it. Maybe he had been. 8 years of drowning. Finally, someone threw him a rope. Sloane glanced at Dante. He sat perfectly still, eyes locked on the letter tiles, jaw tight, hands flat on the table now, pressed down like he was holding himself in place. He was memorizing every word, every technique, every sound. His lips moved silently when Marco sounded out words. Kuh-ha-tu, do-o-ga. He was learning too, absorbing everything, teaching himself from his son's lesson. 35 years of watching others read effortlessly, 35 years of wondering what was wrong with him, and here in this room, watching his 8-year-old son learn what he'd never been taught. The shame must have been crushing. But he didn't leave, didn't look away, didn't pretend he wasn't learning alongside Marco. When the lesson ended, Marco hugged her, quick and fierce, skinny arms around her waist. Then he ran off to find dinner, footsteps echoing through the empty house. Dante stood slowly, unfolded from the small chair. Same time tomorrow. Yes. Sloane packed her bag. Her hands moved carefully, deliberately. But I need to tell you something. What? You're doing the lessons too. Dante went still, completely still. Excuse me? You have dyslexia. You never learned to read properly. You've been hiding it for 30 years. She looked at him, met those cutting eyes. If Marco sees you learning with him, he won't be ashamed. He'll be proud. He'll understand that struggling doesn't mean failing, that asking for help isn't weakness. I don't need... Yes, you do. Her voice was firm but gentle. You built an empire to hide a secret. Your son is building the same walls at 8 years old. Break them down. Show him it's okay to struggle. Show him it's okay to learn. Show him that even the strongest, smartest man he knows can ask for help. Dante's face was stone. You don't know what you're asking. I do. Sloane stepped closer. He didn't move, didn't back away. I know what it costs to hide. I know what it costs to pretend. I know the weight of carrying a secret that heavy for that long. I'm asking you to stop paying that price. For yourself, for Marco. If anyone finds out, no one will know unless you tell them. She met his gaze, held it. This stays between us. 3 people, that's all. But you need to do this. Not for your reputation, not for your business, for your son. So he knows he's not alone. So he knows his father understands. Silence stretched. Dante looked at the books lining the shelves, thousands of spines, thousands of titles, thousands of words he'd never read. An entire library of beautiful, expensive evidence of his shame. I'll think about it, he said finally. Think fast. Sloane picked up her bag. Every day Marco learns without you, he believes the shame is his to carry alone. He believes he's the broken one. He believes you're perfect and he's not. That gap will kill him eventually. I've seen it kill other kids. She walked to the door, stopped, looked back. You love your son. I can see that. Show him by being brave enough to be imperfect in front of him. She left. Dante stood in the library for 20 minutes after she was gone, staring at the letter tiles still on the table. C. A-T. He reached out, touched the C. His finger traced the carved letter, pulled his hand back like it burned. Then he sat down in Marco's small chair, picked up the tiles, arranged them. C-A-T. Ku-a-tu. He whispered to the emptier room. His hands shook. He was waiting when she arrived the next day, sitting in Marco's chair. 3 letter tiles arranged in front of him. Marco ran to the door, grinning so wide his face looked like it might split. Papa's doing lessons too. He said he wants to learn with me. Sloane looked at Dante. He looked back. Something passed between them, understanding, gratitude, fear. He nodded once. Ground rules, Sloane said. She sat down, unpacked her materials. No judgment, no shame, no giving up. This room is safe. Whatever happens here stays here. You can make mistakes. You can be frustrated. You can struggle, but you can't quit. And you can't be cruel to yourself about it. Marco nodded eagerly. Dante nodded once. I'm serious. Sloane looked at Dante. You're going to want to quit. You're going to get angry. You're going to feel stupid. That's normal. That's part of learning. But you can't let that anger turn into shame. Not in front of Marco. I understand. Do you? Because I've taught adults with dyslexia before. The shame is worse. It's had more time to grow roots. It's harder to pull out. Dante's jaw tightened. I said I understand. Okay. Sloane pulled out the colored overlays. Let's start. They started with the alphabet. Marco knew it cold, had memorized it through songs and repetition, could recite it backward if asked. Dante knew it too. But knowing letters wasn't the same as reading. Knowing the pieces wasn't the same as understanding how they fit together. Sloane used colored overlays, transparent sheets that changed how the brain processed visual information. She'd brought 5 different colors: red, blue, green, yellow, purple. Each one filtered light differently. Each one gave the brain a different tool. She placed a blue one over a page of text. Marco, look at this. Marco looked. His mouth fell open. His hands came up to touch the page, like he needed to confirm it was real. The letters, they're not moving. What do you mean? They always move. They jump around. They swap places. Sometimes the D becomes a B, right while I'm looking at it. But now they're staying still. His voice filled with wonder. They're exactly where they're supposed to be. Sloane's throat tightened. She'd seen this reaction before. The moment when a dyslexic child realized that other people's letters didn't swim across the page, that what they'd been experiencing wasn't normal, wasn't their fault, was just their brain processing information differently. That's what letters are supposed to do. Stay still. Marco's hands trembled. He touched the blue overlay like it was made of gold. I thought everyone's letters moved. I thought I was just bad at catching them. I thought if I tried harder, if I concentrated more, they'd stay still. But they never did. That's because you needed this. She tapped the overlay. Your brain needed help filtering the visual information. Now it has that help. Can I keep this? You can keep all of them. We'll figure out which color works best for you. They tried each color. Red made the letters too bold. Green wasn't quite right. Yellow was close. But blue made everything crystal clear. Dante leaned forward, stared at the page. They're different colors. The overlays help your brain process the information. Sloane handed one to Dante. Blue, the same shade Marco was using. Try it. He placed it over the page. His breathing changed, faster, then slower. Then he held it entirely. His hand shook. The plastic sheet trembled against the paper. I can see the words, he whispered. I can actually see them. Not just shapes, not just blurs. Words, real words. They're not moving. They're not flipping. They're just there. You've always been able to see them. Now your brain can process them without fighting itself. She smiled. Let's start. They worked for an hour. Simple words, repetition, building patterns. Marco stumbled less than Dante. His brain was younger, more flexible, less weighed down by decades of compensation strategies. Dante's jaw tightened every time he made a mistake. His hands curled into fists, uncurled. Curled again. Do-o-gu, he said, staring at the tiles that spelled dog. Good. Again. Do-o-gu. Faster. Dog. His voice was rough. Perfect. Something cracked in his expression. I'm 35 years old, and I just learned to read the word dog. No. Sloane's voice was firm. You're 35 years old, and you were brave enough to admit you needed help. That's different. Marco grabbed his father's hand. We're learning together, Papa. Just like you said, we're a team. Dante looked at his son. For the time since Sloane met him, she saw his face soften. Really soften. The stone cracked and something human showed through. Yes, we're a team. They met 3 times a week. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 5 o'clock. Same library, same table, same letter tiles and colored overlays and careful, patient progression. Marco improved quickly. Within 2 weeks, he was reading simple sentences. Within a month, he was reading short books. Picture books with large text, but real books. His confidence grew like a plant reaching toward sunlight. He volunteered in class, raised his hand, smiled, brought home homework he'd actually done himself instead of copying. His teachers noticed, one called Sloane. What did you do to Marco Navarro? He's a different child. I taught him to read. But how? You tried teaching him the same way you teach everyone. I taught him the way his brain learns. Silence on the line. Then can you teach me how to do that? Yes. But that was later. First there was Dante. Dante improved slowly. He fought every lesson, got frustrated when 3-letter words wouldn't stick, threw pencils once, twice, then stopped himself the 3rd time and apologized, left the room when the shame became too heavy. When 30 years of carefully constructed lies pressed down and made it hard to breathe, the third week he didn't show up for a lesson. Marco sat at the table alone, worried. "Where's Papa?" "I don't know, sweetheart. Let's do your lesson." They worked for 30 minutes. Then Dante appeared in the doorway. His shirt was wrinkled, his eyes were red. He looked like he hadn't slept. "I'm here," he said roughly. "Are you okay?" Sloane asked. "No." He sat down, picked up his tiles. "But I'm here." "Do you want to talk about it?" "I had a meeting yesterday. Important people, big deal. They handed me a contract to sign, 50 pages. I sat there for an hour pretending to read it while they watched. Made up questions to look like I was being careful. Signed it where they told me to sign. Walked out with no idea what I'd just agreed to. Silence. "I've done that 1,000 times," Dante continued. His voice was hollow. "1,000 times I've signed my name to things I couldn't write. And yesterday I was angry. For the first time, I wasn't scared or ashamed. I was angry that I couldn't just read the damn words." Marco grabbed his father's hand. Dante looked at his son. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't curse." "It's okay, Papa. You're allowed to be angry." "Am I?" "Yes," Sloane said firmly. "Anger is better than shame. Anger means you know something's wrong and you want to fix it. Shame just makes you hide." Dante's hands shook. "I don't know how to be angry. I only know how to hide." "Then learn. The same way you're learning to read, one day at a time." He nodded, picked up his tiles, again. But he came back, always came back, sometimes after 5 minutes, sometimes after 20, but he'd walk back into that library, sit in the too small chair, and try again. "Again," he'd say, voice rough. "Teach me again." So she did. One afternoon, Marco came home from school buzzing. Papa, I defended you today." Dante looked up from his letter tiles. "Defended me?" "Tommy Ricci said." Marco's face flushed. "He said mean things about our family, about you, about how you make money. He called you a criminal. He said you hurt people." Dante went still. The library got quiet. "What did you say?" His voice was carefully controlled. "I told him he was wrong. I told him you're the smartest man alive. I told him you're learning to read with me, and that's braver than anything his dad has ever done." Marco's eyes shone. "I told him his dad probably can't even name all 50 states, but my dad runs an entire business and takes care of me and still has time to learn something new. I told him courage isn't about never being scared. It's about doing hard things even when you're terrified." The room went silent. Dante stared at his son. His throat moved. His hands gripped the edge of the table, white-knuckled, shaking. "And what did Tommy say?" Sloane asked gently when Dante couldn't speak. "He said I was lying. He said there's no way my dad can't read. He said everyone knows my dad is smart." Marco grinned. "I told him being smart and being able to read aren't the same thing. I told him my dad is smart because he's willing to learn, not because he already knows everything." Dante stood abruptly, walked out of the library. His footsteps echoed down the hallway. A door closed somewhere distant. Marco's face fell. "Did I say something wrong?" "No, baby. You said something very right. Sometimes very right things are hard to hear. They crack us open, and your dad isn't used to being cracked open." "Is he mad at me?" "No, he's proud of you. So proud it hurts." Sloane squeezed Marco's hand. "Keep reading. He'll be back." Marco picked up his book, but his eyes kept darting to the door, worried, waiting. Dinte returned 10 minutes later. His eyes were red. His face was wet. He didn't bother hiding it. He walked straight to Marco and pulled him into a hug. Fierce. Desperate. The kind of hug that said everything words couldn't. "I love you," Dante whispered into Marco's hair. "You are the best thing I've ever done. The only thing I've done right. Papa, thank you for defending me. Thank you for being proud of me, even when I'm not proud of myself." Marco hugged him back. "I'm always proud of you, Papa. Always." They stood like that for a long time, father and son, learning together, growing together, breaking open together. When they finally separated, Dante sat down, wiped his face, picked up his tiles. Again, he said, voice rough but steady. Teach me again. Sloane watched them learn together. Watched Dante use the same techniques she used with Marco. Watched him notice. You're teaching me like you teach him. You're both learning the same thing. I'm not a child. No, but your brain learns the same way his does. She looked at him. There's no shame in that. Your brain isn't broken. It's not worse. It's just different. And different doesn't need to apologize. Dante's jaw worked. I built an empire so no one would know I couldn't read a contract. I know. I've signed documents I never understood. Just nodded and signed where they told me to. I know. People have died because I trusted the wrong advisor to read something correctly, to tell me the truth, because I couldn't check their work myself. I know, Sloane's voice cracked. And that's why you're here, to stop making that mistake, to take back the power you gave away because you were ashamed. Dante looked at her, really looked, like he was seeing her for the first time. You're not afraid of me. No. Why not? Everyone else is. Because fear doesn't help anyone learn. She paused. And because I know what it's like to be terrified of letters. Real fear isn't about violence. It's about being exposed, being seen, being known as broken. You're brave enough to face that fear. That makes you more courageous than most of the people who are afraid of you. He studied her face. You're strange. I'm a teacher who has dyslexia. Strange comes with the territory. The corner of his mouth twitched, almost a smile. Gone before it fully formed. But it had been there, real, genuine. The breakthrough came on a Tuesday. 3 months into lessons, Marco was reading chapter books, simple ones, but real chapter books with actual plots and character development. Dante was reading simple sentences without colored overlays. Progress, slow, steady, real, but still painful, still frustrating, still weighed down by 35 years of shame that Marco hadn't accumulated yet. The Tuesday had been hard. Dante had struggled with a paragraph for 20 minutes, kept mixing up was and saw, kept reversing letters. Finally threw the book across the library. I can't do this. Yes, you can. I'm 35 years old. I should be able to read a children's book without wanting to break something. You're 35 years old and you're learning something that should have been taught to you when you were 6. That's harder. Cut yourself some slack. I don't know how to do that. Then let me do it for you. Sloane picked up the book, brought it back. Try again, but this time when you make a mistake, just fix it. Don't make it mean something about you. It does mean something about me. It means your brain is wired differently. That's it. That's all it means. Dante stared at her, swallowed hard, tried again. He got through the paragraph, made 3 mistakes, fixed them himself, kept going. When he finished, his hands were shaking. You did it, Sloane said quietly. I wanted to quit, but you didn't. I wanted to throw the book again, but you didn't. I wanted to, his voice broke. I wanted to be enough, to just be enough. You are enough, right now, even struggling, even making mistakes. You're enough. Dante's face cracked. He pressed his palms against his eyes. Marco, who'd been reading silently, climbed into his father's lap, wrapped his skinny arms around Dante's neck. You're more than enough, Papa. You're everything. Sloane placed a new book in front of Dante when he'd composed himself. Thin, colorful, a book she'd bought specifically for this moment. He looked at the cover, read the title aloud, haltingly. The Cat in the Hat. Can you read the first page? Dante opened the book, stared at the words. His hand shook. Actually shook. A man who'd done things Sloane didn't want to know about, whose hands probably hadn't trembled during violence, couldn't hold a children's book steady. I don't... His voice broke. Yes, you do. Trust yourself. He took a breath, let it out slowly, looked at the page. The sun did not shine. It was too wet to play. Silence. Marco gasped. Sloane's throat closed. Keep going, she whispered. So we sat in the house, all that cold, cold, wet day. His voice broke. I sat there with Sally. We sat there, we two, and I said how I wish we had something to do. Marco launched himself at his father, threw his arms around Dante's neck and held on tight. Papa, you're reading! You're reading a real book! Dante's hands came up slowly, wrapped around his son. His shoulders shook. His breath came in gasps. 35 years of shame, cracking open right there in that library full of unread books. I'm reading to you, he whispered into Marco's hair. I'm reading you a story. You are, Papa. You're reading to me. Sloane looked away, gave them the privacy. Her own eyes burned. She'd seen this moment before with other students, other families. It never got less powerful. It never stopped feeling like watching someone take their first real breath. When she looked back, Dante was wiping his face. His hand shook. Again? Again, Marco said. Please, Dante added, looking at Sloane. So he read the entire book, stumbled, paused, sounded out words, asked for help twice, but he read it, cover to cover, his first real book at 35 years old. When he finished, Marco climbed into his lap, too big for it, 8-year-old limbs gangly and everywhere. Neither of them cared. Dante wrapped his arms around his son and held on. Will you read to me at bedtime tonight? Marco's voice was small, hopeful. Yes. Promise? I promise. That night, Dante read Marco 3 bedtime stories. Marco fell asleep during the third one, sprawled across his father's lap like a puppy, trusting and safe. Dante kept reading anyway, his voice rough, his hands steady, his son breathing softly against his chest. He read until his voice gave out, until the words blurred, until he had to stop because he couldn't see the page through tears. 6 months. After that first lesson, Marco read at grade level. Ahead of it, actually. His teacher sent home glowing reports. His confidence had transformed him. He'd made friends, joined the debate team, tried out for the school play, brought home a report card with straight A's. The other parents whispered, how did the Navarro boy suddenly become brilliant? What changed? No one asked directly. No one dared. Dante read contracts now, slowly, carefully, with colored overlays and a dictionary and the knowledge that he could ask questions without being destroyed for it. He'd fired 3 advisors, one who'd been skimming money by misrepresenting percentages, one who'd maneuvered him into a bad deal through clever wording, one who'd lied about illegal exposure because Dante couldn't check the source documents. I've been cheated for 15 years, he told Sloane during Marco's lesson, one Wednesday. His voice was ice. Men I trusted, men I paid well. They knew I couldn't read the details. They knew I had to trust them. So they lied. And now I know, his jaw set, and I'll never be lied to again. He'd asked Sloane to attend a meeting once, just to sit in the corner, just to watch him read a contract himself for the first time with other people in the room. She'd gone, sat in an expensive chair in an expensive office, while 6 men in expensive suits watched Dante read a 15-page contract. He used his blue overlay, moved his finger along the lines, mouthed words silently, took 45 minutes to read what they'd expected him to skim in 5. One man checked his watch, another sighed quietly. The third started to say something. Dante looked up. I'm reading it, you'll wait. They waited. When he finished, he pointed to paragraph 7. This clause. It says I assume liability for environmental damages. That wasn't in our verbal agreement. The lead attorney went pale. That's standard language. It wasn't in our agreement. Remove it. Mr. Navarro, if we change the contract now, then change it. I'll wait. They changed it. Dante read the new version. Took another 20 minutes, found 2 more discrepancies, got them fixed, then signed it. In the car afterward, he'd looked at Sloane. I've never done that before. Read something myself, caught the lies myself. How did it feel? Powerful. He paused. Scary, but powerful. You should be proud. I'm angry I didn't learn this 30 years ago. Then use that anger. Teach other people. Help other adults who are hiding the same thing. Turn your anger into something good. He'd been quiet for a long time. Then, I don't know how to help people. You're helping Marco. That's different. He's my son. It's not different. Helping is helping. You just have to decide to do it. 3 months later, he'd quietly funded an adult literacy program at the public library. Anonymous donation, six-figure grant. Enough to run the program for 5 years. Marco found out, told Sloane, glowed with pride. Papa's helping other people learn to read. Just like you helped us. Marco looked up from his book, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, which would have been impossible 3 months ago. Papa's scary when he reads contracts. Dante's expression softened when he looked at his son. Am I? Yeah, but I like it. It means you're protecting us. You can't protect people if bad guys are lying to you. Something moved across Dante's face. Pride, love, wonder. No, you can't. The lessons continued but changed. Less about survival now, more about joy. Marco read everything he could find. Cereal boxes, street signs, menus, comics, books. He carried books everywhere, including one memorable day when he brought a book to his father's office and read in a chair during a meeting. One of Dante's associates made a joke about it. Boss, your kid's becoming a nerd. Dante looked at the man, held his gaze. My son can read, can yours? The man went pale, shut his mouth, never mentioned it again. Dante read in private mostly. News articles, reports, documents, legal contracts that needed his signature, everything he'd been signing blind for 15 years. But at night, always at night, he read to Marco. Chapter books now, long stories, adventures, fantasy, mystery. Marco fell asleep every night to his father's voice reading words neither of them had understood a year ago. Sloane watched them grow, watched shame transform into pride, watched secrecy transform into openness, at least between them. One Friday, Marco stayed late after his lesson. Miss Sloane? Yes? Thank you. His voice was serious, 8 years old going on 80. You saved me. You saved yourself, Marco. I just gave you tools. You gave us tools. He looked at his father. Both of us. On the last day of official lessons, 1 year after the first day in the janitor's closet, Marco brought a card to Sloane. Handmade, construction paper and markers and careful, deliberate lettering. I made this for you, he said shyly. She opened it. Inside, in careful 8-year-old handwriting, with only minor spelling errors. Thank you for teaching me to read. Thank you for teaching my papa, too. You saved us. You made us a team. You made Papa brave. I love you. Marco? Sloane's throat closed. She pressed the card to her chest. Marco, this is beautiful. I wrote it myself, every word. I spelled beautiful wrong the first time, but I fixed it. I can see that. I'm so proud of you. Can you still visit, even if lessons are done? Of course, we're friends now. Friends visit. Marco grinned and ran off to show his father something in his book. Dante approached slowly. He held something in his hand, a folded piece of paper, regular paper, not expensive stationery, just paper from a notepad. I wrote something too, he said. His voice was rough. It's not good. I'm still learning. The spelling is probably wrong, but he stopped. He swallowed hard. I wanted you to have it. He handed her the paper and turned to leave. Dante. He stopped, didn't turn around. Thank you for being brave. His shoulders tensed. He nodded once, then left. Sloane unfolded the paper. The handwriting was rough, letters uneven, words carefully formed, some crossed out and rewritten, some with spelling errors that had been noticed and corrected. It read, You gave me bake, my son. You gave me bake myself. I didn't know I was lost until you found me. Marco says he loves you. I don't know what love looks like anymore, but if it looks like anything, it looks like what you did for us. Thank you. D. She pressed the note to her chest, closed her eyes, breathed. Outside, Marco's laughter rang through the library. Dante's low voice responded, reading, always reading, giving his son the one thing he'd never had himself. Words, freedom, the absence of shame. Sloane folded the note carefully, put it in her bag. She'd keep it forever. This imperfect, misspelled proof that shame could be unlearned, that courage could be taught, that even the most powerful people sometimes just needed someone to sit beside them and say, You're not broken. You're just different, and different is enough. 2 years later, Sloane got a call from an unknown number. Ms. Mercer? A man's voice, professional, crisp. Yes? This is James Chen, attorney for the Navarro family. Mr. Navarro has asked me to inform you that he's made a donation in your name to the International Dyslexia Association. The amount is substantial. He's also established a scholarship fund for students with learning differences at St. Benedict's Preparatory Academy. The fund will provide free tutoring, assistive technology, and educational support. He's named it the Sloane Mercer Memorial Fund. Memorial? I'm not dead. A pause. Mr. Navarro said you'd say that. He wanted me to clarify. It memorializes what you did for his family, not your death, Sloane. Laughed, actually laughed. How much did he donate? To which organization? Both. I'm not at liberty to discuss specific amounts, but I can tell you that both organizations have asked to name wings of their buildings after the Navarro family. Oh my God, there's more. Mr. Navarro has quietly identified 12 employees in his organization with reading difficulties. He's hired specialists to work with them. 3 have already improved enough to accept promotions. 1 is attending college for the first time at age 42. Sloane's eyes filled with tears. He's also funding adult literacy programs at 5 public libraries across the city. Anonymous grants. 5-year commitments, enough to help approximately 500 adults learn to read. 500 people. Yes, and that's just the beginning. He's meeting with the mayor next month to propose a citywide initiative. Universal screening for dyslexia in public schools, free tutoring for identified students. He's pledging $10 million over 5 years to fund it. Sloane sat down hard. $10 million. Mr. Navarro also wanted me to inform you that Marco received perfect scores on his reading comprehension test this semester, and that Marco has written a speech about learning differences that he'll be delivering at the school assembly next month. He'd like you to attend. I'll be there. And the lawyer's voice softened. He wanted me to read you something. He wrote it himself. May I? Yes. A rustling of paper. Then, Dear Sloane, that's how you start letters, right? Marco's teaching me. He's a good teacher. Like you. He reads 3 books a week now. I read 1 book a month. Slow progress. But progress. I fired 4 more advisors. Promoted 3 people who I now know. Can't read either. We learned together, like Marco and I learned. You changed my life. You changed Marco's life. You changed the lives of people you'll never meet because I can read now. Because I can think now. Because I'm not afraid of words anymore. Thank you. Dante Navarro. Sloane's vision blurred. Ms. Mercer, are you there? I'm here. Is there anything you'd like me to tell Mr. Navarro? Tell him I'm proud of him. Tell him Marco's lucky to have him as a father. Tell him... Her voice broke. Tell him that courage looks different on everyone, but it looks good on him. I'll tell him. And tell him... Sloane wiped her eyes. Tell him he's changing the world. 1 word at a time. The line went dead. Sloane sat in her car, still the same 15-year-old Honda with the cracked windshield, and cried. Happy tears, relieved tears, proud tears. She'd saved 1 boy from drowning in shame. And in saving that boy, she'd saved his father too. And in saving his father, she'd changed 500 more lives, maybe thousands, as Marco and Dante grew into men who understood that different wasn't broken, that asking for help was strength. Sometimes that's exactly how teaching worked. You reached 1 person, and they reached back, and suddenly the world was different, better, brighter, permanently changed, 1 word at a time.